Um, does anyone object, I should have said, yeah, to the session being recorded? Are you all content for me to record the session? Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much. So we just started recording. You should have had a message up on there to say that you're now being recorded. Okay. Just a very quick tip. Technology is great when it works, but if for any reason you should just get logged off or whatever, just wait a couple of minutes and log back in. And very much, yeah, that in terms of will enable us to um, uh, bring you back in. And in a sense, a couple of things that I do want to sort of outline for you. In terms of the nature of today, a couple of ground rules. And in fact, there's only two things that I really want to sort of emphasize. These issues can at times be sensitive. And in terms of what I'd like in terms of if there are discussions we're going to have, could you please do them with respect? And as a second ground rule, given that we're taking time out of our day to do this, I hope you'll feel comfortable enough to be honest with any contributions that you actually make. So those are the two things that are fundamentally key to me with regard to today. So can I just ask, is everybody okay with those as the ground rules for today? Yes? Okay, thank you very much. So the session focus. Thank you, Danielle. It's around providing equitable, inclusive services for Black, Asian and minority ethnic individuals. And to do that, what I want to do is to talk about the disparities, particularly in the education and higher education, further and higher education sectors, yeah, for Black, Asian and minority ethnic individuals. Going to look at what the barriers are and issues faced by both staff and indeed students. And what's the impact of a lack of cultural competence and unconscious bias in the workplace itself? And hopefully being able to look at what are the practical ways we can break down these barriers and improve our practice to be more equitable and inclusive for everyone. So that part of this is the focus that we're wishing today. The wider picture that sometimes I would actually utilize, yeah, as I said, given the time frame we've got, this is what we'll be focusing on today. So to do that, what we've got is a session on inequalities and disparities. I'll then have a quick look at what is culture, what is unconscious bias, and as I said, ending with some practical things that we may want to seek as consideration. And the reason for looking at particularly culture and unconscious bias within the various things that may create disparities is that most research will tell you that these things are key factors in the sort of disparities I'm going to be sharing with you in a moment. Inequalities, disparities and barriers. First of all, disparities in education. Some of these stats, again, you may or may not be aware of, but in many ways, the issues in terms of the statistical information I'm going to be providing you are things that are factual. And in a sense, a discussion of how these disparities arise is something that we'll come on to thereafter. The first one, overall, Black academics make up only 2% of the total working people at UK universities. Second, out of the 21,000 professors in UK universities, 85% are white, 6.4% are Asian, and only 0.67% are black, with other unidentified groups representing 7.9%. There are no black staff employed at the most senior levels of leadership in British universities. This goes back to 2018, 2019. And just 75 people on universities' governing bodies identified as black out of 3,600 governors in England, Wales, Scotland, including staff and non-staff. And statistics suggest that the vast majority of British universities employ between 0 and 2 black professors only. Surprising disparities that we go on. Females face disparities too, with male professors outnumbering females by 3 to 1. Again, some 2016-17 data shows that all ethnic minority groups are less likely than white students to receive a good 2-1 degree, highlighted by the fact that in academic attainment, only 56% of black students achieve a 2-1 compared to 80% of their white peers. And in all of this, my consideration, or a consideration, is why are there these disparities? Which is where we'll come on to the issue of a lack of cultural understanding or sensitivity, and indeed, primarily the issue of unconscious bias. Okay. Black, Caribbean, Pakistani, Gypsy, and Irish travelers are the least likely to achieve up to a grade C, C grades in maths and English. UK domiciled Black, Asian, and minority students received the top grade compared with 73.2% of white British students. So a 57.1% as against 73.2%. Ethnic minority pupils disproportionately enter further or higher education. They constitute 26% of all undergraduate students in England and less likely to attend the Russell Group of universities. All of which what I'm highlighting to you and given a context for why there's a need with regard to these issues of addressing the disparities that exist. And as a consequence, looking at Black, Asian, minority ethnic people in particular are as a result of these disparities. Having looked at health, it's quite interesting that in terms of moving on from that, what is very clear is that these inequalities exist in all sectors of public life. And just really a couple of bits to share with you. In general health, by way of example, black people are 20% less likely to give a positive response to their treatment. In mental health, believe this or not, but black people are 40% more likely to be turned away when seeking help from mental health services. And black patients in mental health institutions are 29% more likely to be forcibly restrained. And black people, staggeringly, 49% more likely to be placed in seclusion. Why? Within criminal justice, and I know this from my own experience, I've been a magistrate on the Cardiff bench for 25 years and can see the disparities that exist, even with regard to the issues of sentencing, by way of example. But a recent report, the Lamy Review in 2017, noted the proportion of youth prisoners has risen from 25% in 2006 to 41% in 2017. That's Black, Asian and minority ethnic youth prisoners. Black people are more than twice as likely to die in police custody. And this isn't something around England, because you may very well be aware incidents in both Newport and indeed in Cardiff relating to deaths in custody. And these are recent. Between April 2018 and March 2019, there were 4 stop and searches for every 1,000 white individuals against 38 for every 1,000 black individuals, i.e. 9.5 times higher. And something that staggered me, a report just a few weeks ago, maybe a month now actually, that it said that in Wales, black people were more likely to be stopped and searched than the rest of the country. Staggering. But that again are factual information I'm actually providing to you. Poverty, housing and homelessness. Black, Asian, minority ethnic groups are much more likely to be in poverty than white British people. Black, Asian and minority ethnic groups more likely to experience homelessness than their white counterparts. And these also go in terms of employment. In 2017, applicants from minority ethnic backgrounds had to send 80% more applicants to get a positive response from an employer than a white person of British origin. And it actually goes further than that in terms of last week we were doing some sessions with, interestingly, Cardiff University psychology students. And a young Polish lady said to us that she had to send 150 applications before she got a positive response. And again, I ask, why are there these disparities? Just want to look at some of the barriers that are faced, Black, Asian, minority communities. Stereotypical views of Black people. And yes, I'd say to you, racism. There's also the issue of cultural ignorance or lack of cultural sensitivity, unconscious bias, and the issue in terms of cultural competence with regard to differences. And the question that I often ask with regard to that is, how do we treat and interact with people who we may perceive as being different to ourselves? And I'm not asking for an answer from you, but I hope in terms of just have a think about that. And it's certainly in terms of answers is that we treat them the same. Because in your profession, in your work, very much, there should be a person-centered approach. That person-centered approach means treating people with according to their needs appropriately. But as we'll see, this doesn't always happen because of this lack of cultural competency and our own unconscious biases, which we all have. Just wanted to share this with regard to barriers for students. Access to higher education for many ethnic minority people remains problematical. And this report, some of these things I'm quoting from, was from a recent report by Baroness Amos, that I can send the references to these because I think it's well worth having a look at. Within higher education, Black, Asian, minority ethnic students consistently face barriers in terms of accessing culturally appropriate services, including a lack of cultural understanding, communication issues, and where and how to seek help. There's overt discrimination and a lack of access to culturally appropriate services that are cognizant of the racialized plight faced by Black, Asian, minority ethnic individuals. And an interesting one for me is this issue around social activities, where if you can imagine, if your face doesn't fit, the view around exclusion, and this is one of the things that many students, particularly from different countries, particularly who are Black, cite as being a real issue. Also, the issue of differential healthcare outcomes. There's a little case study I've got at the end, which I want to actually share with you with regard to differential treatment in terms of healthcare. Barriers to accessing mental health support for ethnic minorities directly impact upon attainment, outcomes, and indeed psychological well-being. And some of the considerations that I would share with you, that service providers need to work more collegially with people from Black, Asian, minority ethnic communities prior to the way in which you design and deliver your services. Upon presenting mental health issues, information should be made available in appropriate languages for ethnic minorities to support understanding about their illness and how they can seek professional intervention and help. And greater diversification of support for ethnic minority students within universities. And I put these down just as considerations. And in a sense, the second one there with regard to mental health, about their illnesses, something that you should all be aware of is that in some cultures, in some languages, there isn't even the term mental health recognized. So in a sense, I wonder in terms of where there may be an issue with regard to mental health illnesses, how that is approached within your university. Okay, just a little time now, and happy to take any questions that you may have. And in a sense, I'd start off myself with a question. Did the stats, which are only a sample and not even the worst of the stats I could have presented, did these stats surprise you? Anybody care to start? Nkechi?
Uh, they didn't surprise me, Charles, because I'm Black and I have that lived experience and I live it every single day. However, what did surprise me is the ease, I guess, at which nothing is being done to move the dial forward. In fact, in a lot of these areas that you've mentioned, predominantly in terms of social, just the justice system and in education, we are seeing a decline in some of those stats. In fact, we're going backwards. So I guess my question to everyone today is, how could we work at moving that dial forward and really finding practical ways to reduce some of the, the percentages that we're seeing there.
Okay. Is a point well made, Nkechi, because part of, and I can go back when I first started working in diversity, inclusion, equality and inclusion. These same stats have been around for decades. And guess what? Some work we've been doing with the Royal College of Psychiatrists around mental health in particular, they're actually getting worse rather than better, if you can believe that. And there's another little stat that I'll just share with you, which actually, in a way, gives a little context to life in the UK. If I was to tell you that proportionately, there are more black prisoners in UK prisons than there are in the US, would you believe me?
No.
Well, well, they are. Okay. The key term obviously is proportionately, and that proportionately relates to a basis. Obviously, America is a much bigger place, but it's our perceptions and views, yeah, that always that in America is a lot worse than here, but it's not. And that's one of the stats I'm trying to share with you in terms of the basis of what Nkechi actually identified is a need and a crying need to move forward. Okay. Any questions either via chat or verbally that I can maybe set out for you? And I think what I will do, Nkechi, is that there's a booklet that we have, yeah, I'll send on to you that you can pass on, where you can see a range. As I said, I've only selected a few of the stats here in all these different areas, yeah, for you to have a look at, as well as the Amos report, yeah, which again is a good document to have a look at in terms of student population, so forth. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Charles. We do have a couple of comments in the chat, if I may read them out.
Thank you.
Amy's just answering in response to your question around the stats. Yes, they are shocking. Linda, I think seeing them all listed in the picture they paint is very shocking again. And then Suzanne has given us a nice little write-up there in terms of respondents to a survey that was held earlier this year, reflecting that the lack of representation in education actually caused Black children to be misunderstood or mislabeled as troublemakers. So this idea, I guess, about resulted in them being permanently or temporarily excluded from school. And I think it's linked to, Suzanne, correct me if I'm wrong, the report done on the precocious nature of the Black child. I will share that in the chat as well.
Okay.
It's a very interesting read.
Okay. And in a sense, what I'd say to you, just to end on this, as I said, that normally they have a lot more time to sort of unpack some of these things, but next time you see the word inequality or disparity, note that these can and often are significant. And I'm sure many of us, a basis of just seeing those words, and I was the same, probably meant, oh, so there's a difference. But some of these can be really shocking, as has been identified by some of the participants already today. Okay, so two things I said to you that contribute to these disparities. And I will come back, Nkechi, towards the end to talk to you about some of the things that we can do, including not saying too much about the scheme in terms of what it's seeking to do, yeah, in terms of being able to deal practically with these disparities. So, what is culture? What I want to do is to share with you a little video which was developed for Public Health Wales, actually. We're given a description of what culture, cultural diversity, and indeed cultural competencies. It asks for just 5 minutes, so I'll just share this with you. Obviously, with regard to the video itself, made, as I said, for Public Health Wales, but if you take out the word service user and include students perhaps in there, I think you'll begin to see, as I said, happens in all sectors of life, yeah, including the education sector. So that's again just a brief overview with regard to the issues around culture and the importance placed in terms of being culturally competent to help deal with these disparities. And again, just a little sort of question, really. And there was a part in the video which said that understanding our own culture or our own worldview. And two things I'd just like you to think about for a moment is how would you describe your cultural background? And indeed, is this something you've ever properly thought about? The answer I often get, particularly not so much from the ethnic minority community members, is, oh, it's something I've never thought about. What makes you you? How would you describe your background? Are you Welsh? Are you English? The issues around your religion, all of which can create a bias or a preference. Yeah, Valleys and Welsh, great, because part of that, yeah, is something I'll ask you. Thank you. Just a very quick thing. If I was to ask you to describe, and please don't get offended by this, whether you thought that the English had a different culture to the Welsh, what would you say? Yes?
I'd say most definitely.
Most definitely. Okay. And if I was to go just a little further, as I said, it's a pity we haven't got time to unpack this. So go a little further. And could you give me one word that you would say would describe the English?
I can't, no, other
Well,
than English.
One word, Linda, that we're allowed to say on the call.
Okay, I'll tell you what I often get told, yeah, and again, you can unpack this for yourself, that the English are arrogant. Yeah, a view that people hold, particularly when I talk to people, interestingly, not only in all the kind of Scotland, Ireland, parts of Ireland anyway, but that view that's actually held, particularly on rugby days, yeah, that you get this view that's given. And guess what? And again, I haven't time, but this view that you have sometimes of a particular group of people is the association you then make. That's your first port of call. And if you are thinking, yeah, as some of these people have responded to me on this, that this is the view I have about the English, being arrogant, yeah, because most of the views about difference is negative. And what that can actually do, that it actually is a basis of your starting point in terms of seeing somebody or even helping somebody. Key part. Anyway, move on just a little bit. You saw the cultural competence or the outline of it. I just wanted to share again the importance of the awareness, building on that awareness, and knowledge. That knowledge particularly in the education sector, easy to find, yeah. But it's not just about stuff that you may see or read, but how about mixing with different people? Best way in terms of getting to know people is actually mixing with people. Do you do that? Most important in terms of the model that I use with regard to cultural competency is the issue of sensitivity, because it builds on the awareness and knowledge and seeks to provide positive actions with regard to people that you may perceive as being different to yourself. And cultural competence, certainly in the workplace, is the embedding and putting into day-to-day practice the cultural awareness, knowledge, and sensitivity. And that word embedding is so important because it becomes the norm, not, oh, sometimes I'll do it. Cultural competence is important in terms of being able to deal with these disparities. And another question that I often ask, and I will take maybe a couple of answers from you just for this. Is your workplace, would you say, given the model I've just shown you, culturally competent? Anybody?
I think there are probably many people within the workplace that are, but I think maybe the workplace as an organisation probably could be a little more culturally competent.
And in a sense, very much that is the case, because there's always, I'd say to you, room for improvement. Yeah. Could I just maybe, I don't mean to say pick on someone, but Dan, are you there? Yes.
Hello, Charles.
Hi, how you doing? Would you say your workplace was culturally competent, Dan?
No, I wouldn't. I was thinking about this as we were talking about it, and I was going to suggest we're probably neutral, but I know that's a bit of that's not a very helpful term. I don't think that we have sort of consciously addressed the point I think Amy made in the chat about the cultures of the communities that we serve. I don't think that we really sort of look at that and consciously try and recognize and address and work with work with our communities that are and the cultural diversity that we have in our area, and also within our staffing cohort as well.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you mentioned about the staffing cohorts, yeah, because again, another piece of research would say to you, as being a culturally competent organisation in terms of the services that you have you got, by way of example, very simple to what you just said, Dan, a representative workforce and staff from minority ethnic groups? I doubt it.
I would be very surprised. Yeah. Again, I don't
No,
think
we
know. I
don't,
mean,
Charles.
Nkechi's
Is
probably done
the
this
answer.
work since she's arrived. I suspect we've not been sort of consciously culturally aware of what representative means for us. So
okay. Well, here's the thing, and to me, sometimes these things can be so simple. In the 2011 census, there was a table 11, I think it was. I'm not sure because they haven't sort of produced it in the 2021 census, which for each local authority area gave you a breakdown of the different ethnic groups that you had in your area. So when people, not saying this to you, say to me that we don't know, yeah, even Welsh Government now produce on a local level, yeah, in terms of not as detailed as the census one, yeah, but there are ways of being able to identify what those groups are. That's information that's out there already. And that's a starting point, yeah, in even being able to say, am I representative? Newport has the second largest ethnic minority population. And in many ways, it's something that, given the public sector equality duty in 2001, that monitoring of your of both in terms of people who's working for you and indeed people around you should be in place. That's all I'm saying to you. It's not a basis of something that is being made up, but how are you going to know what the needs are of your people if you don't know who they are? Have you got sufficient policies and practice guidelines relating to working with minority ethnic users? Have you got representative numbers of minority ethnic clients? I use clients, but students. Effective relationships with minority ethnic community and third sector groups. And I think you alluded to that, Dan. Yeah. Do you go out there and talk to people? Do you invite people in? Do you have staff with sufficient awareness, and this is important, or confidence working with diversity? Do you know, one of the things that often comes up, this particular issue of confidence. Well, I don't want to talk to them or ask them something because I don't want to offend. And I wonder how many of you think like that. Yeah, but the worst thing is making assumptions rather than having the confidence or the courage to actually ask somebody. So important. And the final one, culturally appropriate and targeted information about services. And I can't say I've seen, and I would hope that the imagery that you have in seeking to attract people to the university, what that looks like, is it culturally appropriate? Nkechi?
That would depend on which context, Charles. Without giving a negative response, that would depend on, I guess, the location. We have to be conscious that we're across 5 different campuses, 3 of which are in predominantly white, very rural Welsh Valley areas. And the other 2, I would say, being in Newport and Cross Keys, the answer to that question, Charles, for those 2 campuses is no. We are not representative at all of the communities in those areas.
Well, in a sense, and I'm not disagreeing with you, but look, as a college, in terms of identifying, well, okay, I'll put this in this area, but not, you should be representing, yeah, and even the knowledge that there may not be, in time, people in these other areas, if you like, yeah, coming forward, it's just about that kind of cultural competence, that understanding, that sensitivity that you have to provide, that we welcome you all. That's kind of the thing in terms of moving forward positively.
And practically, Dr. Willie, what does that look like? Is that imagery at the front staff? Is that imagery at our campus receptions? Is that front of house staff who are diverse? Is that student voices which are diverse? I mean, if we don't have the diversity in our staff makeup, maybe we can compensate by using some of our students who are diverse. What does that actually look like? I think that's what we're really desperate to understand.
It is all of those things plus, and the plus I'd say to you is what you put out there for people, yeah, to come and join us, yeah. The wording that you put out there in terms of, is that culturally competent, yeah. All of these things, and I could go through a whole list of you, and maybe I will do, but it is those things that you need, yeah. Yeah, it's not just as you say, the staffing and so for what people see, yeah. A lot of people, in terms, did you do any broadcasts to invite people into the university or into the college? Sorry, yeah.
For
to say, come and join us here. Do you do anything like that?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. What's the imagery look like in that?
I'm happy to comment on some of the imagery that I've seen, Dr. Willie, since I've started, albeit I've only been here for 3 months now. But from what I can see now, the imagery is becoming a little bit more diverse due to all of these interventions, i.e., people like yourselves coming in to actually talk to us about this subject, because it's really important. And it's we need to stop saying that we're going to do it. We just need to do it.
Yes, and I think that's my point, really. And again, I really wish I had more time to unpack some of these things, but hopefully you'll join the scheme, and part of that, is something that we can actually start working towards, in terms of being able to do something positive,
Excellent. Thank you.
Something very quick, going back to what we're now going to talk in terms of unconscious bias. Suze, can you just do this very quickly, please?
Of course. And this will only take maybe 30 seconds to a minute. So could I just ask you all, please, to close your eyes? If you could just do that for me. Now, close your eyes. Now, we haven't been away for a while because we've had the pandemic, of course, and dying to go on holiday. But guess what? We got an opportunity now. We can go. So we're at home. We're packing our stuff, and we bought some new things for the holiday. And we're off to the airport. So off we go. So when we get into the airport, we can see we got time this time, for the flights. We're going to order myself a drink. So go to the bar, you order yourself a drink, and they say, "Well, sit down. We'll bring it over to you." And while you're waiting for your drink to be brought, you notice over in the corner there's a wedding party going on. People are singing, laughing, dancing, joking together. And here comes your drink. Anyway, nice, whatever you want, rum and coke, whatever, sipping it, looking round. See, now, finish my drink. I'm going to get on the flight. So off you go now through the departure lounge. You're on the plane. You see the steward, stewardess, the pilot. Hello. Take a seat. Take your seat. Just sitting comfortable in your seat now, waiting for the flight to take off. Open your eyes. Is everybody's eyes opened? And if you can just answer me, yes or no, whoever wants to answer. While when you was in the airport, and they said, take a seat, we bring a drink over to you. When your drink was brought over to you, was the person in a wheelchair who brought you drink? Anybody see that? No? Okay. So then you've seen into the corner, there was a wedding party going on. Was that wedding party a same-sex couple? Did anybody visualise a same-sex couple in the wedding party? Now you're going on the plane. You've seen the pilot, the stewardess. Was the pilot a woman? Anybody see a woman? Did everybody see a man? Was it a black man? And that's how you see how we all think in the same way. We're not thinking any wider. We just think of the stereotypes that we know, that we see. And just to prove that point. Thank you.
And in a sense, the issue in terms of what is unconscious bias, are effectively these perceptions, these views that we hold. And I'll explain a little bit more. I'm going to show you again a second video, which is only 4 minutes, this one, just to actually sort of identify clearly what unconscious bias is. And really to emphasize that point, and very much, if you weren't aware of it before, the power of your subconscious mind is immense. And the term stereotypes that we've used a number of times, I just want to show you a little video which shows you how easy, and some of you may have seen this, it is to stereotype. Still always makes me laugh, yeah. But we do it, yeah. You must like kimchi. I mean, this is the views we hold as a certain group of people. Anyway, unconscious biases are a fact of life. We all have them. And our conscious mind, actually some recent research, and indeed my doctorate was based around unconscious bias, as I said, in terms of looking at the issues of civil service, yeah. But 95 to now 98% of all our decisions, actions, and behaviors, yeah, we make through our unconscious mind. And this surprises people. You saw on there, our brain's exposed to 11 million pieces of information every second. We can only consciously process 40 of these at one time. And if you have a look at that little drawing I've got up there, what you'll see is this, what I call sometimes a massive filing cabinet. That's the subconscious mind to the little bit that you've got with regard to the conscious mind. And in this filing cabinet, importantly, they use the term, the rules that are set, and we all do it. Not only does these are things that go into the subconscious mind, but they are all associated with a rule. And just one thing I'll just say to you about that, and very quickly, and I won't ask you as such, but have any of you got phobias? I don't know, spiders, mice, or what? What I can say to you is that many of those phobias started when you were very young, or you have got them very young. I'm not saying to you it can't happen as you go on, but these things have been stored in your mind and you act irrationally. You, at your age now, what can a little spider do to you? But I bet you'd run a mile. Well, I know I'm petrified of mice, by way of example, yeah? And when the cat brought one in, I was on the table asking my daughters to come and save me. Irrational, yeah? But they're there because of something that happened to me when I was very young, by way of example. There's a direct link between our unconscious thinking and our actions and behaviors there. Unconscious bias may lead a person to act in a way that's at odds with their intentions. Unconscious bias influences people subtly, not overtly, and it derives much of its power from the fact that people are unaware of it. Most of us, unaware of our unconscious bias, and unconscious level, most of all would say we don't discriminate. But again, as shown in the video, our hidden minds might. We all suffer from having prejudices. They're simply mental shortcuts. Most of us believe that we're ethical and unbiased. We imagine we're good decision makers, able to objectively size up things and reach a fair and rational conclusion. Going back to my view in terms of rational, that's not in our and our organization's best interest. And I'll just make the point again, the power of the subconscious mind is actually immense. And rather than asking the question, I'll just leave you with this thought. For those of you who drive, have you ever wondered how you've got from A to B without even thinking about it? All that's held in your subconscious mind, yeah? And don't worry too much, because there is a link between the conscious and subconscious, because the conscious mind actually kicks in if there's a worry in terms of something going to happen, yeah? But that's the power you have in your subconscious mind. Okay. What's the time? 11 minutes past. We're due to finish at 1:30, are we? Yeah. All I'll ask you to do, rather than then unpack it, this is a true case study. And the question which I'd ask you to consider for yourself is, was there any unconscious bias? So I'll just give you a couple of minutes to read this, because it's important. We've been talking about unconscious bias. In a university setting, this took place. And it's one of many I could have given you in terms of the sort of things that can and do take place. Okay. Maybe I'll just take one person, give any comment. Was there any unconscious bias in this case study? I think someone who hasn't perhaps spoken before. Bum bum. Is Kimberly here?
Hi there.
Hi. Okay. Just your thoughts about the case study, Kimberly.
It's unconscious bias. You immediately go back to your own experience, don't you? So I'd say mine's very diverse, because I've actually lived in London, been one of the only white children in a whole black class. I've also done university in London. So it's hard for me in that I actually found this when I went to London, in that I was the Welsh girl. and everybody would refer to me as the Welsh girl. So
yeah.
it's definitely an unconscious bias because you just draw upon your own experiences, don't you?
Yeah.
So as hard as you don't want to. I
Yeah.
will say another thought we've had throughout this thing though is that my biggest learning, unfortunately, has been in college. I have she's coming at 5-year-old now. Seeing a child who I do believe, has unconscious bias at the moment.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting that she makes comments and I've already made a judgment and she hasn't.
Yeah.
So I think kind of going back to, you'd have to kind of unpick everything, your own experiences, to not be an unconscious bias in any case study, unfortunately.
Yeah. Thank you for that, and thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I appreciate it. And I wish again we had more time to unpack some of the, because lots of good stories. I say good stories or views to share with one another. But I hope, as I said, this won't be the end of things. Yeah, and even if it isn't, there's nothing stopping you from yourselves coming together and having these sorts of discussions. Yeah, they're worthwhile. And again, one of the things I remember, gives my age away a bit, the BT advert, it's good to talk. And I think that's one of the things I'd say to you that I've found in the many years as far as being able to get people to talk about these issues. So thank you. Thank you, Kimberly. So what's the impact of unconscious bias and the lack of cultural competence, and what can we do? The impact of unconscious bias and lack of cultural competence influences who we employ, how much we involve and listen to people who are different, how we design our services and projects, how we deliver equitable, inclusive services, and also impacts on, going back to the workplace, team/stroke individual working practices, i.e. how we treat one another with these biases that we hold. Impacts on leadership and management approaches, leads to a lack of consultation and engagement, which can lead to inequity in service provision, which is where we started from in terms of the basis of what this actually means and leads to. Okay, my last little video. What can we do? Working towards fair and treatment and respect. Okay, so just a bit there with regard to a starting point, really, as far as I kind of intimated. Yeah, there is something that we have that's been actually award-winning now, acknowledged as a good starting point on a journey to dealing with these disparities that we made reference to. So, what can we do to improve our cultural competence and to mitigate against our unconscious biases? Here's a list of things here in terms of, and just again, take a 30 seconds or so to have a look at those. And what I would ask as more or less one of the last activities that we will actually do is just for some of you, and again, those who haven't yet spoken, maybe I ask, which of those do you think is the most important for you of those in that list? Anna, which is the most important for you?
I think it's difference for opportunities for learning and development, because even within a single group, everyone's different and unique in how they see themselves and express.
Yep, definitely. Helen, I hope I've got that spelt that I've said it the right way. Yes, all of them. Indeed, in terms of a basis of over the years in making up this list, yeah, these are things I considered, yeah, and it is all of them, but in a sense there are some, and like you, the issues in terms of, for me, opportunity for learning and development, yeah, is one of the key ones I actually sort of see. But respect cultural differences, recognize, acknowledge our own bias. That's a good starting point, isn't it? Yeah, because sometimes we don't even think about that. Yeah. So again, thank you for the two of you in terms of that. It's something that again I'll be sending to Nkechi in terms of maybe to have a look at some stage to see in terms of how maybe implement some of these. In terms of how to overcome unconscious bias and improve cultural competence, something I should have said under the unconscious bias bit itself, which isn't rocket science, and some of you may already operate in this way. The photo I had with the brain, what research will tell you, the best and easiest thing you can do is just take a step back and consider, have I done this for the right reason? And that taking the step back, guess what? Engages the conscious mind, which can allow it to analyze, because that's one of the functions it's actually got. And it can be as simple as that. And if that becomes your norm, that view in terms of giving consideration to me is really important as far as have I done this for the right reasons? So be aware of your own unconscious, don't rush decisions, justify decisions by evidence, conduct self-assessments, taking a good, honest look into your unconscious, yeah. And something that I think, again, a positive way of looking at this, reframe from discrimination to focus on fair treatment and respect. And last but one slide. What I'd like you to hopefully go away and have a think about is What am I going to do as a result of what we've covered today? And it's not about changing the world overnight. Small incremental steps. And I'd hope there are things that you think, well, okay, I'll make a start with this. On what will be a journey in terms of seeking. As I said, this isn't just about race. Because if you talk about difference, it covers all the protected characteristics. And if you can get your mind on the basis of being able to review, as I said, in terms of the person-centered appropriate way and giving proper judgment to things, then the world, I say, as a better place. Our services providing a better, more equitable service to one and all. So I hope you'll go away and have a think with regard to that particular question I've put. So just by way of a summary, there is a need to address the recognised, acknowledged inequality in services provided to Black, Asian minority ethnic people. And in this context, students and staff, as compared to non-Black, Asian minority ethnic students and staff. The inequality leads to, for example, less pathways to higher education, lower attainment levels, as is clear from all statistical and evidential information available. And as an end, key factors is the inequality, the effects of unconscious bias and lack of culturally competent services, which leads to significant disparities for Black, Asian, and minority ethnic individuals. So, just leaves me to say thank you. Although we didn't have, obviously, the time we would normally have to, as I said, unpack some of these things, I hope you found this useful as a reminder, or indeed providing a view for you with regard to the disparities that exist, and to some degree a start of our journey of what hopefully individually or as an organisation or as a college we can do about it. So I've got two more minutes, so any questions would be welcomed from anybody. The chat things, I will sort of seek to provide responses to them, but more than happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Just one from me, really. It's an observation. I think that last slide that you put up, I think it was the last slide, it just about taking time, stepping back, consideration. I think that's, to me, that we need to put that equality impact assessment higher up on our agenda when we're looking at policy development and changing the way we do things. Because I think often it's done as an afterthought to the preparation of a policy, and I think we need to put it alongside the preparation of a policy.
Right. Okay. So again, thank you all, and I look forward, hopefully, maybe in the future, to be working with you all in terms of seeking to improve cultural competency in the college. So hope you have a good afternoon, one and all.
Okay,
Thank you very much. Thank you very much all for joining, and I'll make sure that I send across all the resources so that we all have open access and can just increase our own learning. But I hope you've enjoyed the session today and found it both thought-provoking and very, very instrumental really in our journey really when it comes to equality, diversity, inclusion. We will definitely be working with you, Dr. Willie and Suzanne, and we're really, really excited for what the future has for us as a partnership. So thank you, everyone. once again. If you have any questions that you might think of maybe later on, feel free to send them my way, and I'm happy to put you in touch directly with Dr. Willie or Suzanne. But if you could stay on, please, Suzanne and Dr. Willie. For everyone else, enjoy your afternoon, and thank you so much for joining. And please, please, please do find time to fill in the feedback form that my colleague KJ has just popped in the chat. Thank you. Enjoy your afternoon.
Thank
Take
you all.
care.
Bye.
Just waiting for a few more to drop off, I think.
Right,
Oh, are those? Oh, Nigel. No, Nigel is with us. Hi, Nigel. You're still on the call.
Okay, I'll leave off. I was looking for the form, but
Oh, it's all right. Did you
get
have a
another time,
question?
so. No, it's okay. All right, thanks, Dad. Bye.
All right.
you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Nigel.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Danielle, are you staying on, or
Yeah, she
Danielle
can
is
do.
with you, isn't
Yeah,
she?
Daniel's with us. Yeah.
Perfect. How did you find that? First of all, just checking in on you, Dr. Willie, specifically, because it was powerful. I think you really hit the nail on the head, Dr. Willie. Honestly, I cannot thank you enough.
Not a problem at all. I think the one thing, it's always difficult, because one of the things I'm really into is being able to, I use the word.
Sorry, Dr.
Yeah.
Willie, do you want to just pause the recording for now? Thank you.
Oh gosh, I forgot. That wouldn't be good, would it?
And bear in mind, I'm going to send this on as well. So thank you.